Brilliance Audio presents the unabridged recording of Into the Fire by Suzanne Brockmann, performed by Patrick G. Lawlor and Renee Raudman. Part 1, 6 months ago. Chapter 1, January 2008, Dalton, California. Hannah Whitfield woke up alone in her bed, which wasn't that unusual. In fact, this had been her only opportunity to not wake up alone for the first time in years, due to the still somewhat unbelievable fact that she'd actually had sex last night. Hannah swept her hair out of her eyes as she reached to turn on the lamp that sat on her bedside table, trying, not as successfully, to push away her feelings of imminent dread. Her head was pounding, and her ankle was on fire, so she took a pull from the nearly empty bottle of Johnny W. she'd left next to her bed. Hair of the dog was the age-old excuse. She knew better, but right now she needed the drumming pain in both her head and her ankle to back the hell off. Last night had been far from fairy tale-inducing material, with no impending happily ever after in sight. True, she'd wanted to get with this particular man ever since their very first encounter, since he'd knocked her off that Alaskan pier 100 years ago. 100 years? No, it felt more like a solid 1,000 since the tall, dark, and handsome man with the laughing brown eyes had held out an enormous hand and helped Hannah out of the icy water. It felt like an eternity since either of them had so much as smiled, and maybe it had been. Maybe tragedy had its own rules in the time-space continuum. The year following the death of a murdered wife and best friend passed at the speed of 500 years in normal, happy human time, with all of the previous years of laughter and joy instantly fading to ancient-seeming, sepia-toned, distant memories. So yeah, last night had been grimly moonbeam and fairy dust free. Once upon a time, Hannah had let herself get laid, except, no, that wasn't quite right. She'd been the layee. It was Vinh Murphy who had gotten laid, for the first time since Angelina had died. Last night, like most nights these days, Hannah had been somewhat anesthetized, but she was nowhere near as shit-faced as Murph. They had had an argument about the same old, the keys to his truck. Hannah had swiftly adiosed them when he had shown up at the cabin at 0100, already wasted. That was his M.O. She wouldn't see him for months, and then he'd appear, usually in the dead of night, flashing.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?